Okay guys, here we are. We're going to go over factoring trinomials again. When you're factoring trinomials, I always like to start out with setting up two sets of parentheses, just like this right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put inside these parentheses, we're going to put whatever this first term is. In this case, it happens to be an x. And we're going to put it in the first position on each one of these parentheses. So there's an x goes there and an x goes there. So we're going to do that each time we have one of these. If it's x squared, x goes here, x goes here. If it's m squared, m goes right here, and m goes right here. So it just depends on whatever that variable is. Next thing we're going to look at is this term right over here that's underlined. The very last term. We're going to look at that one, and we're going to have to take the factors of, in this case, the number 14, which means we've got to come up with all the different ways to multiply two numbers together to get the number 14. So let's do that real quick. We'll do that over to the side. 1 times 14 gives me 14. That's obvious, all right? Now we'll go down to 2. 2 times 7 gives me 14. So both of these work. 1 times 14, 2 times 7. And these are all the different ways that you can multiply two numbers together to get 14. So what we have to look at now is, since they multiply together to get 14, do they also add together to get 9? And which one of these two sets is that going to be? Well, 1 plus 14 gives me 15, but 2 plus 7 gives me 9. So that's what we're going to choose, 2 and 7. All right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take those two numbers, 2 and 7, and I'm going to put them in the other position inside these parentheses right here. And now what we've got to do is we've got to figure out what our signs are going to be. Now this one is one of the easiest ones you'll have and that you'll see. Anytime you have two plus signs right here in the original problem, this is a plus sign and then this is a plus sign. Anytime you have that, your answer will always also have two plus signs, just like this. So this is our final answer, x plus 2 times x plus 7. So we've factored this trinomial into two separate binomials, x plus 2 and x plus 7. Now in the last example we had two plus signs in the trinomial, and this time we have two minus signs in the trinomial. Now when setting up and starting to work this out, you start the exact same way. First thing we're going to do is draw out two sets of parentheses just like we did before, okay? Nothing is changing there. And then again, we're going to take the variable, whatever it is in front, and that's going to go into the first two positions. Right there and right there. And that's going to happen every single time you start out with these things, okay? You're always going to start with putting that variable right there. And that's assuming it's just an x squared and not something else like a 5x squared. If it's a 5x squared, we'll get to that later. But if it's just an x squared or an m squared or a b squared, you're just going to put that variable in that first place. Now again, we're going to do the exact same thing we did in the last problem. We're going to look at negative 10. And we're going to try and come up with all the different ways you can multiply together to get a negative 10. So let's go through that real quick, okay? So we've got 1 times 10, 2 times 5. Okay, and those are all the ways we can get 10. And I said negative 10 earlier. What we're going to do is we're actually going to not really worry so much about that negative right now. We're just going to get the factors of 10, which is what we have over here. Okay, so now we've got to figure out what in the world will multiply, or add rather, to get a 3 out of this. So 1 plus 10, does that give me 3? No. 1 minus 10 doesn't give me 3. Will 10 minus 1 give me 3? No. 10 plus 1 give me 3? No. So we can go ahead and X that one out. We know it's not going to be this one up here. It's not going to be 1 times 10. Well, what about 2 and 5? It's got to be that one, all right? Well, let's take a look and see. 2 plus 5, does that give me 3? No. 5 plus 2, does that give me 3? No. Well, what about 5 minus 2? Does that give me 3? Well, yeah, that does give me 3. So, okay, this will work. So let's put our 2 right here and our 5 right here, okay? So now, we've got our numbers, we've just got to figure out our signs. Here is where we're going to look at this sign right here first, okay? We look at the second sign. We've got a negative here. So what that means is that we're going to have two different signs. One of these in our answer is going to be positive and one's going to be negative. We've got to figure out which one it's going to be. Now to figure that out, we have to look at this sign right here. Since this is a negative, what you're going to do is you're going to put that negative with the bigger of these two numbers. So which number is bigger, 2 or 5? Obviously 5 is. So we're going to put, oops, wrong color. We're going to put that negative with the larger of the two numbers. And since the signs have to be different in our answer, we're going to make this sign a positive. So this is our answer, x plus 2 times x minus 5. Alright, now for our third example, you can see we've got a different trinomial up here. And this time, well, so far we've covered one that has two plus signs and two minus signs. Now we've got a minus sign and a plus sign. So let's see what we're going to do here. Again, start out the exact same way. Go ahead and draw out your parentheses, just like this right here, okay? And again, your variables alone in front, so we're going to put that in the first two spots. We've got x there and an x there. Good. Now what you've got to do is you've got to come up with all the different factors to get this last number way over here, 42. So 42 is kind of a big number, so let's start going through them. All right, we've got 1 times 42. We've got 2 and 21. We have 3 and 14. Let's see, 4 goes in there. 5, and then it looks like 6 and 7. Those are the only ways you can factor numbers out of 42. The only possible combinations that add up or multiply to get 42. So now what we've got to do is we've got to go through and see, since we know they all multiply to get this number, we now have to see which ones add together to get this middle term. Okay? Well, 1 plus 42 doesn't give me 13, and 42 plus 1 or 42 minus 1, however you try and do it, it's not going to give me a 13. So I'm going to go ahead and scratch out that first set over here, okay? We know that's not going to work. 2 and 21. 21 plus 2 is 23. 21 minus 2 is 19. That's not going to give me 13 any way I try it. Okay, so let's go to the next one. 14 plus 3 is going to give me 17. 14 minus 3 is going to give me 11, so it's not going to work there. 6 plus 7, does that give me 13? Yes, it does. Okay, good. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 6 and 7 and put them in those second two spots right there. And again, we're not really worried about the signs until this very last step right here, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our last sign right here, the one at the very end. It's a positive. A positive means that both of our signs are going to be the same. So they could both be positive or they could both be negative. Doesn't matter which. It could be either one. So we've got to look and see. The way we look and tell what that's going to be is we look at this one right here. The green is highlighting the very first sign, and it's a negative. So that means that both of these signs have to also be a negative. And if you go back and check it, you can see negative 6 times negative 7 is going to give you positive 42. And then if you went through and added these together here, we got negative 6x right here. And then if we check this one, that's going to give me a negative 7x when I multiply those together. And negative 6x minus 7x is going to give me negative 13x. So that checks out. This problem, this works. So this is your solution, x minus 6 times x minus 7. Alright, now in this final example, we're going to start it out exactly the same way we've done the other three examples. And you can see here, this problem is a little bit different. This trinomial has a plus sign first and a minus sign second. So now you will have seen every possible combination of different signs and this way you'll know exactly what to do with each of them, okay? So you're going to set up drawing out your parentheses, and then of course we've got just the regular variable up in the front, so I'm going to put that in the first two positions. Now what we have to do is, again, go to our final term, our last one here, and we have to take all the factors of 20. So let's start with 1 times 20. That gives me 20. We'll do 2 and 10. 3 doesn't go. 4 and 5 works though, so we'll start there, and then that's all the different factors of 20. Now we've got to figure out what will add or subtract to get 8, because we know all these will multiply to get 20. We've got to figure out what will add or subtract to get 8. So what we got is 1 times 20. Will 1 and 20 add or subtract to get 8? No, it won't. So we've got to scratch that out. 2 and 10. If I do 2 plus 10, that gives me 12, but if I do 10 minus 2, that gives me 8. So there we go. That's the one that's going to work, okay? So 10 and 2. So now we have to go through here and put these numbers in, 2 and 10. And now we've got to figure out what our signs are going to be. Now again, we have to look to the signs in the original problem to figure this out. First off, we look at this sign right here. It's a minus sign. So looking at that, that means that these two signs in our answer have to be different, because in order to multiply together to get a negative 20, we have to have a positive and a negative, or a negative and a positive, but they have to be different to get a negative 20. Now, to find that out and which one's going to be that, we look at our first sign. It's a positive. So kind of like the other problem we just had a second ago that had a minus sign in it, when you have a positive right here, you're going to put that positive with the bigger of the two numbers. Let me change my colors back to black. So that's going to be a positive, and that's going to be a negative. And then again, to double check my work here, I can FOIL this out real quick, which is what I'm going to do. So x times x gives me x squared. 10 times x gives me positive 10x. My inner two terms are negative 2x, and then my last two terms, negative 20. And then I combine any like terms that I have here in the middle, so that leaves me with x squared. So positive 10x minus 2x gives me positive 8x minus 20. So there you have it. So now we've gone through all four different types of basic factoring of trinomials. So you've got plenty of examples of each. You've also got plenty of examples in your packet should you need any of those. Hopefully this will answer any other questions that you had.